Hello again. Welcome to Hangar 51. My name's Kenny, and today we're going to review the. Well, I bought this. It was called the Redcat P-51. No longer sold by Redcat, but it is an R-Tech model, so you can still get it from R-Tech. Just have to look around. This video is really, I've had the plane for a while, and this video is really more for people that have the plane than people that want to buy the plane. And I'll tell you why. There's better planes out there for the money. So I had to do a lot to this. I got mine, I opened the box, start putting it together. The first thing I find is that the pre-installed horn on the elevator here, there was actually a little indentation to show where you're supposed to mount the horn, and they had mounted the horn behind it. So you have to have, when you mount any of these control horns, the little holes for the adjustment have to be in line with the hinge. If they're not in line with the hinge, you're not going to get even throw. It's going to throw one way farther than the other. You're going to get a very heavy differential in the throw rate. So you always want to make sure that this is mounted so that the holes here in the adjustment part are in line with the hinge line. And as you can see, the holes back here, they had mounted the control horn actually a full size behind it. So I had to move that. Then I'm putting it together, and I try to put the wing on, and it comes with nylon bolts, 2 nylon bolts, and then it's a tongue and groove fit in the back, and then 2 nylon bolts here. And the nylon bolts won't thread in because the steel nuts that are mounted in the foam or glued into the foam are full of glue, so I can't screw them in. So I had to go buy a tap and tap the holes so that I could put the wing on. So then I go out and try to fly it, and it only flew for about a minute, and the engine shut off. And I thought, okay, I got a bad battery. So then I came home and tested the battery, and battery was fine. So then I had to figure out what was wrong with that. They had mounted the speed control. This is the battery cavity. And they had the speed control in here where the battery goes, and so no air was getting to it, so it was overheating. So I don't know if it's supposed to be where I put it, but what I did was I took the prop off, took the red cover off, and that gives you access to this cavity here. There's a little air hole, and I reinstalled the speed control here. And I also cut the heat shrink away from the top of the heat sink so that it wasn't insulating it, so that the heat sink had actual air to it. It wasn't insulated from the heat shrink. And then I put it back in there, and then it flew fine. But I had had several bad landings prior to that because of trying to fly it and it just shutting off in the air. And so it wasn't good, but I didn't want to give up on it. After I moved the speed control, that cured that problem, and now it would fly. I could get a good 12-minute flight, moderate throttling. Okay, now it flies, but it doesn't fly very well. It's underpowered. It comes with this 4-blade prop, which it's just black, and then I painted the tips yellow to make it look good, and it looks great. I mean, it's a very nice looking airplane. It makes a great display piece, and now it flies pretty good. But again, for the money, there's better planes to buy. So I wouldn't go out and buy one of these. There's other things I would spend my money on. But if you already have one, the good news is we can save it. I can actually tell you how to make it a good flying plane, because now I've had months of fooling with this thing, and I've got it figured out. So let me get, hang on one second, I gotta get the transmitter. Just go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. Okay. So it used to be sold, and again, I don't know if they're still selling it. I think they've discontinued the model because they were having so much trouble with it. But it really wasn't rocket science to figure it out. Now I bought the Ready to Fly version, and let me tell you why. And you really need to consider this with any model you buy. If they offer it in a bind and fly version and a Ready to Fly version, weigh out the differences, because it really is a better deal to buy the Ready to Fly version, even if you're not going to use the radio. And here's why. If you buy it bind and fly, you've got a receiver in there. If you don't have that proper, the receiver if it doesn't match the transmitter that you already have, then you have to buy like an AnyLink system, or you have to buy a module to go in your transmitter to go with this receiver, or you're going to just take the receiver out and put your own receiver in, which is what I did. And you're throwing money away. And you're either spending more money to make it work or throwing money away in a receiver that you're never going to use. So here's an option. Usually the bind and fly, the Ready to Fly version that comes complete is only, a few dollars more. And when I say a few dollars, relative to the price of the whole package. And you get a full radio system. So you're going to get a transmitter and a receiver. Even if you don't use it in this plane, you might use it in something else. You could put it in a boat, you could put it in a car, you can sell it, recoup some of your money, but you're not throwing money away by like having to buy an AnyLink system or having to buy a transmitter that'll work with that receiver. So it's not always a bad idea, but the bonus here, because the extra money isn't just for that. Now when you spend the extra money for the Ready to Fly, you get a battery pack. Now this is a 1700 milliamp 3-cell pack. So if you've got any other 3-cell using airplane, you got another battery pack. Okay, it's only 1700 milliamps, so it's not going to fly a long time, but depending on what you're flying. But I've used this even on my tricopter. So, it's a battery pack. You also get a charger. Now this is a plug-in-the-wall charger. It is a peak charger, and it's a balanced charger, and it will do 2 and 3-cell batteries, and up to 1 amp charge rate. Okay, 1 amp's not very fast, it's going to take a while. But, again, now here's another thought. I use my 4-button quick charger to get it to the 90%, 95% level, because the last 20-30 minutes of the balance it's sitting there at under an amp of charging rate, and it's trying to balance out the cells. So once I've hard charged it to that point, I take it off that charger to put another battery on, and then I plug, because it's going off the balance port. So it doesn't matter what, you got a Dean's connector, you get a T60, it doesn't matter what connector you have, because the balance port connectors are all the same. You plug it in here and let this finish charge it. And it usually only takes about 10-15 minutes for it to do the final 10% of it, and you've already got a good start on your next battery. So you got a usable charger, you get a usable battery pack, and just round numbers, let's say the whole thing was $60 more for the Ready to Fly versus the bind and fly. Okay, for 60 bucks, I got a charger, I got a battery, and I got a radio, transmitter, and receiver that I can sell. Now, even if I can only sell this for 50 bucks, for instance, round numbers again, then I only had to pay an additional $10 to get a battery and a charger. So weigh it out, and no matter what you're buying, and think about the big picture, because this has been very useful for me. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a hurry to get my next set of batteries on the charger, and now I can just take it off of there and finish the balance charge here for, while that's going, and it works out really good. So it's a good value. Usually, everyone I've seen so far, if you buy the full package, it's a better value to buy it that way and sell off the parts you're not going to use to recoup some of your money back, and then you usually end up with at least a free battery. And free battery is a free battery. So So look at that before you decide whether you're going to buy the bind and fly or the ready fly, and see if it doesn't work out that way for you. Now, it comes as you see it. Easy build, wasn't a big deal. You know, you just screw the tail feathers on. They've got these little plates that hold it together, and the fuselage was completely assembled, motor in it, prop on it. No, the prop was not on it. I had to put the prop on it. It comes with 2 props. It will fly on this prop. It doesn't fly very well, but it looks really good. So if you want it to look scale and look really nice, you can fly it on this prop, but probably not going to have an enjoyable flight. And it's just, you know, it won't go vertical for, you know, 20, 30, 40 feet, and it just stalls. So it just doesn't fly with any authority. It flies, it'll get in the air and it'll fly, but it just isn't it's not a comfortable, easy flight. So so I had to fool around with this for quite a while, and I finally got the prop that made the difference. Now this is I think this is a 10-4 prop, if I remember right. It's got, yeah, it looks like it's a 10. I think it's a 10-4 prop, and it's a 4-blade. And 4-blade props are very inefficient, very inefficient. So you can look on other YouTube videos and watch their comparisons, and they're all going to tell you the exact same thing. A very inefficient prop. Looks scale, but inefficient. And on this model, it really makes a big difference. So I finally found the prop that works. This is the Park Zone. It's a 2-bladed 10. I'm guessing by the pitch of it, it's pretty heavy pitched. I'm guessing it's a 10-8 propeller. And made all the difference in the world. And it bolts right on. Now it doesn't fit the spinner. I had to modify the spinner. It's the same spinner that, you know, you can probably see it. You know, the one slot's there, you know, and the other slot opposite. And I had to whittle this out on both sides to make clearance for this prop. But it looks great, and really, even if you put this prop back on, the extra hole doesn't really show up. I mean, if you didn't point it out to somebody, they'd never notice it. It looks fine. So you can still put this prop back on, and it works fine, and it looks fine. But just modifying this spinner a little bit was able to get this prop on. Now this prop, on takeoff roll, you can go vertical, and it'll go vertical 300 feet. It just goes straight up. It's not that it's rocket fast straight up. It goes pretty good. I mean, it's definitely a lot faster than it was with this on it, but it just has a lot of pull now. It flies with authority. It flies like it's going to stay in the air. You can throttle it back to half, 3/4 throttle, and it just flies very good now. And you still have vertical abilities. You can pull back on the stick and it'll go vertical, and made all the difference. So if you have one of these, get this this Park Zone. The part number is PKZ 1005, and it says it's a propeller for a P-51. I'm assuming it's Park Zone's P-51. I don't know in relationship to what size that particular plane is to this one. All I know is this prop made all the difference. So if you have one of these and you've been struggling with it, not flying very well on the 3-cell pack, go get yourself this PKZ 1005 Park Zone propeller and modify your spinner and put it on there, and it is a completely different airplane now. I mean, night and day difference. Huge difference. So now it's actually fun to fly. Now the other thing I did, the reason I didn't use this radio wasn't because I was afraid of it or anything else. At the time I had gotten this, I had just gotten one of those 3-axis gyro stabilizing receivers from Hobby King, you know, the orange series. And I wanted to try it out, so I decided I'd try it out in this plane. So I threw it in there, and of course it's doing all of its jittery stuff, and you know, and I'll be honest with you, that whole AS3X, you know, thing that Horizon Hobbies has, and now Hobby King has their 3 gyro, which is exactly the same thing. Um, it's not something I would buy an airplane for. I wouldn't not buy it from it, but it's not a selling feature as far as I'm concerned. It really doesn't do anything that I can tell. I mean, yeah, it might be stabilizing the plane from wind gusts, but it tends to overcorrect some too. And this one's adjustable if you want to keep messing with it. But I have several of the Park Flyer Horizon, the mini stuff with the AS3X in it, and those aren't adjustable. And sometimes they tend to overcorrect. And like I said, it's not a big deal. It's not something I'm sold on. I wouldn't buy it for it. I would not buy it if it's a plane I really like and it has it. I'd still buy it. But as far as that goes. But what it did give me using that receiver is the ability to mix. And I'll tell you where you need that. This plane needs flaps. It didn't come with flaps. There's places to cut out for flaps. But all I did was I made flaperons. I put there's 2 servos in this particular plane has, servos in the wing. And what I did was they were on a Y connector, and what I did is I unplugged the Y connector and plugged one of the servos directly into the auxiliary channel, and of course I've got it bound to my my DX6i, so the DX6i, yeah, and then I went into the menu and I mixed the two. So now I have ailerons and flaps, and landing this thing now, when you put the flaps down, it doesn't try to tip stall at all. And when you're coming in with this plane without the flaps, it wants to screw into the ground. It's a little tricky to land. You really have to keep the gas on. But when you put the flaps on it, oh my God, what a difference. It just rock solid stable now. You can fly it. If it stalls now, it just noses over. It doesn't try to roll. It doesn't tip stall at all. If you actually stall it, it'll just nose down, and it's kind of hard to stall it, really. I mean, now you can just fly it to the ground gently, little bit of power on, and it's not doing anything stupid. It's rock solid. So between the flaperons now and this prop, it's a whole new airplane, and now it's a great plane. It flies really good, and it's a good looking plane. One of the other issues I had with mine, and your experience may be very different, but almost every decal on here was either coming off or had severe bubbling under it, air bubbles. They just looked horrible. So I ended up having to take almost every decal off the plane and then reapply it, and I used like a lacquer, or not a lacquer, a wood finish varnish, but it was a water-based varnish, and I spread it on the plane, I spread it on the decal, I just smoothed the decal back down, wiped off the excess because it's water. It took a long time for it to dry, probably almost a week on some of the decals where the outside edges dried, and then no air was getting to the center, only through the breathing of the foam, and it took a long time for it to dry. But the finished result was that now they're all stuck down smooth. Air bubbles are, very minimal air bubbles, and so they look good now. I'm not completely dissatisfied with the plane. I think it looks really nice, and now it flies really nice, and it lands really nice, but I went through a lot of aggravation with this plane, a lot of frustration. I'm not a quitter, and that's the only reason that I finally figured it out, because I just kept trying different things. As I was determined I was gonna make this thing work some way. The next step would have been to put a different motor in it, and some of you might have already done that, and then that's fine. I mean, that's certainly another option. Going to a 4-cell battery is another option. That would have probably livened it up on the stock propeller, but those were my last resorts. I wanted to try other things first and see if I couldn't fix it, and I did. This prop made all the difference. I know it doesn't look good with that prop on it, but it's easy enough to change. You know, if it's sitting on my workbench or hanging in here and I want it to look pretty, just pop it off, pop this one back on for display purposes. It looks great with this one on it. And then when it's time to go fly, I put that one back on it because it just flies phenomenally different with that on it. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to tell you. I've got some other. I'm going to review another plane here in a minute that I like much better than this one. It was more money, but flies much better. I don't know. I mean, I've seen the prices range from $69 at Hobby King, which I don't think they have it anymore, for the bind and fly version, to $179 for the ready to fly version. So that's a big price gap, and that's not at all relative to each other. It just depends on where you buy it, what you're going to pay for it. So I only paid $100 for the ready to fly version. So 69 was $70 at Hobby King. There would have probably been $15 in shipping. So now we're talking $85, $15 more, and I had the ready to fly version from a local hobby shop that had it. Had it on the shelf. I think he wanted $125 for it. I offered him $100. He took it. So, but even at $125, that's a lot better than the $179 or the $169 or whatever it was. I saw it somewhere. And $70 for the bind and fly versus ready to fly for $179. No, this radio is not worth $100. So, but $50, yeah, you probably could sell the transmitter receiver as new, unused, for probably close to $50. And again, like I said, whatever you get out of it is this and this are free or at a great discount. So there's definitely, like I said, don't just dismiss the idea of buying a ready to fly because you don't need the transmitter, because it's going to come with a receiver, and then you're going to throw the receiver away or try to sell it alone. So it's probably going to be a lot easier to sell it as a transmitter receiver, JR plugs, work with anybody's servo, flight system. And I plan on using this radio. I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to put it in something else, something that flies good, that doesn't need mixing and dual rates, and just something that flies. And I'll pop it in that nice cheap radio, cheap transmitter, cheap receiver. No frills. Doesn't have any dual rates or any fancy stuff, but nice little fly plane. It's just that I know is going to fly well. Perfect. This will work great. So that's what I'm going to do with it. I've got tons of stuff to put it in. So I might put it in a car, because I drive a car with both a wheel radio and a stick radio. So I might just put it in a car. I don't know. I'm sure I'll find something to use it for. So anyway, that's my review. If you've got one of these and you've given up on it, I'm telling you, the first thing you want to do is this. You put this propeller on it, and you're going to be so impressed at how fast this thing flies now, how good it flies, and how well it'll go vertical, that you'd be willing to buy a receiver to hook it to your DX6 or some other radio and do the flap around conversion so that it lands just as well, and it'll be a whole new airplane for you. You'll be very happy. So that's my review. Have any comments, questions, post them at the bottom. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.